Hi, folks. Welcome back to Just Ask George. I'm David Wolf, joined by George Lovato, the head dude at BH Capital. And, George, we've got a treat today.
I like my designation head dude, but we've got a guest today, which is the real head dude when it comes to broadcasting, and also his newly found passion in agriculture and raising beef, Bill Kurtis. Bill, how are you?
I'm good, George, David. Nice
Bill,
to
welcome.
see you.
Welcome to Just Ask George.
I'm a virgin here. This is my first time.
Well, listen, we're glad that you decided to go through a little bit of pain to queue up on Skype, but this is just we couldn't have done this 10 years ago. But it's neat to be able to look and see you and talk to you and have you on the program today. But give us a little background on the ever good
George.
Dr. Bill Kurtis.
Yeah, Bill Kurtis. And by the way, I grew up with you in Skokie. I grew up in Skokie in the Chicago area, and remember the work you were doing for many years. You're originally from Pensacola, Florida. Gained over many years, Bill, television success as an anchor, and then I know you moved away from traditional television and started your own production company, didn't you?
Yes.
Yep.
About 20 years ago.
And doing stuff for A&E, and we've seen lots of it. It's very, very high quality programming, as we all know, our listeners and viewers know as well. You're the author of 2 books, and one on the death penalty, which is fascinating. And welcome to Just Ask George. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks.
Anxious to hear your story.
I was able to re-meet Bill after some time in my tenure at Americana. We tried to block out 2 weeks of his life. I went back and talked to one of our producers and a couple of editors when we had signed the deal with Simon & Schuster to redistribute all the Star Trek product again on our label. We needed somebody to do the bumpers, the intros, and the exits, and we had put everything together chronologically, and Bill was top of the list to try and get it, but we couldn't get you to come to Albuquerque for 2 weeks straight. That was a lot, and so unfortunately we used someone else. But the other day I was back in your hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And through my client, I was introduced to Bill, and Bill's new project and new passion, which is growing beef, grass-fed beef, his company Tall Grass. And I told you when I came back I was really energized about the product itself, because Bill went out of his way, being the gentleman that he is and host of hosts. We went to have a steak dinner at Harry Carey's, and guess what we ate there? Hand-selected New York strips grown by Bill, his Tall Grass beef product.
Oh.
And it was absolutely fabulous. Now, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but you're sort of involving the whole matrix of field to table. You're growing it out there, and then you're bringing it in. Tell us a little bit about how you got started with Tall Grass.
Well, I'm from Kansas. So after 40 years of traveling the world and trying to leave, I went back and realized, oh, my God, this is my place. And I'd fallen in love with the prairies, savanna of Africa. And I just transferred, that a love and appreciation to the tall grass prairie of the Flint Hills, right down the middle of Kansas.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I first bought a ranch, which is, I guess, not the way you do it. It's got backwards. But I wanted to preserve the prairie and things like that. Then I realized, oh, my God, I've got to pay for this thing. And you have hunting and tourism and oil, and
right.
Those weren't sort of in the game, and cattle. And the cattle could eat the grass. And then you sell them to either a feedlot or keep them on pasture. Well, the dominant market, and it still is today, was the feedlot method. And you raise them for a year, sell them at about 400, 500 pounds after you wean them to the feedlot, and that's the last you see of them. Well, suddenly it was beginning to get some bad press, feedlots, and that model. Yeah. And it was the use of hormones, antibiotics, and inhumane treatment with the charges, and E. coli, and we're all familiar with those things. And I said, well, is there an alternative? And lo and behold, someone suggested, well, there is. You could just leave them in the pasture and all those problems go away. It's grass-fed beef. No hormones, no antibiotics, no corn, no feedlot,
Right.
No waste products. So I jumped into a co-op there. They could raise cattle very well, but they could not market it or sell it. And that went out of business. And I realized that if I was going to do this, my goodness, I'm going to have to start from scratch, form an LLC, put a team together to know how to do it, get a management and production line, sales, and create the demand. I like to say I came to Chicago with no hormones, no antibiotics, and no market. That was 6 years.
And no market, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
6 years ago. So we've been at this for 6 years. And in that time, we have developed a supply, a good solid supply, primarily because the ranchers are out there.
Right.
It's almost a religious fervor with them. They want to raise grass-fed beef because they love the animals. They know what happens in the feedlot. They know the health detriment. So they're committed to it, and they've been so good to us. They would carry us, in paying them. We happened to start this thing in the middle of a recession, so, the banks have gone away, credit has gone away, and so we're left with investors and, cash flow.
Right.
So we're feeling pretty good because the market is growing. We've had help with Omnivore's Dilemma, a book by Michael Pollan, Food Inc., a documentary on PBS. Absolutely. They've been doing a lot of work. So the market has been growing. We, have been part of the rising tide along with it. And so we haven't had to do a bulk of the marketing. Everybody says, oh, well, you ought to be in a position. You're nationally known, a television personality. That's true. We've been getting our act together, to where we can step out, and, we need marketing money. Basically, that's our story. Just status quo. A lot is happening, as you know, in the beef business. Beef prices are going to go up. They're going up now. They were not expected to come down for a while. But yet that's a good time for us because all the commodity prices are going to have to come up. And if we can hold the line, then we've had a premium. We've been on top of them. Right. Then we can come closer. So it's a very good time for us. That's tall grass beef. That's my story.
Interestingly enough, the movement in agriculture, Dave, right now is if it tastes good, people will buy it.
Yeah.
As opposed to let me produce it and leave it up to those guys to push the product through the various channels, where it winds up at Kroger's or Smith's or for that matter, Whole Foods. Bill's product, I can test being a steak lover. As you can see, I have a great deal of an investment in this encyclopedia of food. That it was an outstanding product. First of all, I'm not a New York strip fan. I would have, as you've been out with me, it's normally the ribeye. That particular piece of meat was as flavorful as a ribeye. And I can tell you, the first question from my client to me was, after I took the first bite, he says, what do you think? I said, well, let me work my way through it. Because, you start at the end, and usually there's, as people know that know how to cut beef, there's a lot of flavor on the edges, and when you get towards the center, and it was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous. The interesting thing about tall grass is the fact that, he's got an idea. He's been able to pull the beef out of the field. And now the idea that he's had, or his principal focus, has been largely restaurants, has it not, Bill?
We're into food service. We have 3 or 4 chains. One is our backbone, which is Sunset Foods on the North Shore of Chicago. You'd know that being Skokie. Treasure Island, which is a good chain here in the middle of town.
Right.
And we're actually talking to some bigger ones. But, with a small company just kind of trying to build. If I went out and I got 1,000 stores, why I couldn't supply them. So
yeah,
yeah. So it's been, there's a reason, for 6 years of growth, you have to ratchet up,
right?
So you don't oversell.
What do you think the capacity is, at least in and around, say, a 150, 200-mile radius of where your ranch is? To convert or to produce, encourage other ranchers to produce grass-fed beef?
Well, that it's a lot. Of course, we have 2 million head in Kansas, so we're one of the producers of the state. But that would give us a market of Wichita, Kansas City, Tulsa.
Right.
You might be north into Omaha, as far west as Denver. So we could handle a lot there.
Right.
We started in Chicago because that's where people know me.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't begun to scratch the surface of Chicago. We are now at some of the celebrity chef restaurants, very high end. Michael Jordan's, Eric Carey's, Charlie Trotter, Rick Bayless, and they, sort of validate us. They use our meat, and people spread by word of mouth.
Yeah.
So that's part of the marketing strategy too.
Yeah. Let me ask this: in terms of going to the supermarket level and really getting the brand out there, what sort of capital would that require? What kind of infusion would that require to take you to the next level? Because obviously, you've identified you've got capacity. It's just a matter of essentially matching the climber on this ladder to match the climber on this ladder as you gradually build the demand and the supply. It's a very good strategy, by the way.
Oh, good.
You're not outgrowing yourself.
Yeah, we're there operationally. I mean, we have supply, we have labels, we have packaging. We could turn the faucet on very fast. I mean, within a couple weeks. It's the marketing part and sales of getting out there and really selling it to the big stores that is left to be done by us. I like to describe us as, we're not a startup anymore, but we're alive after 6 years in the recession. And in many ways, we are ready to start.
Right.
We're ready to grow from here. We've learned all the lessons. We've done the hard, heavy lifting. And so any infusion of capital, which we need, goes right to the bottom line.
You had mentioned earlier that you already have investors in tall grass beef?
Yes, we have about 20. They're angels in every sense of the word. They're largely from the community, again, that knows me.
Right.
I don't think any of them are expecting an immediate return. It's a combination. This investment is a combination of, yes, you want to make money. You don't want to lose money. But you also feel that you're contributing to the health of the nation and perhaps turning the battleship in changing our diet. We have to do it. Right. 1 out of 3 people are obese. Every chronic disease we have is somehow connected to diet. And in many ways, it's not our fault.
Right.
We're over salted, we're over sugared, we're over processed.
Right.
Look around. You can't find fresh food.
And George, it's a mission-driven business, isn't it, Bill?
Absolutely. When taste is one thing, and I'm glad to have your validation on taste. The second challenge is supply, of course, but the health benefits are remarkable. Suddenly, you have a significantly higher amount of omega-3 essential fatty acids, the darling now, something we've been deprived of.
Right.
And the right balance with omega-6. It's like LDL and HDL.
Right.
The body needs both. But right now, we're out of whack. Omega-6, is 10 to 1.
Right.
Which should be 1 to 1. So omega-3 comes back in. We're conjugated linoleic acid, another essential fatty acid. You eat our fat. You don't throw it away because that's where the good stuff is.
Right.
CLAs have been shown in animal trials. They're just headed for human trials as a tumor suppressor. My God, what do you want?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
It's a weight loss aid. It's almost hard to believe how much is packed in to this health food. And who would believe red meat that got all the bad press?
Have you ever thought about branding the tallgrass beef product omega-3 certified?
It's a good idea. I haven't. It's a good idea.
I told you I'd give you a couple of ideas. Every once in a while I come up with one. I think that, we had gotten into this discussion, Dave and I had, about organic and, I think there was Heart Healthy. Remember that stamp, Heart Healthy?
Absolutely.
It used to be on
Yep.
it. And I think if you said this is omega-3 certified beef, you're saying it's natural, it's healthy. You're really pushing the healthy brand rather than telling somebody that I'm not using hormones and antibiotics. And
well, it struck me as there's a lot of science around this, George, and when you talk about, and Bill, I know you know this, it's you're having to educate a public about a lot of seemingly detail-oriented scientific information. So how do you consolidate that into a
omega-3?
And your idea is the 3 or the something like
omega-3,
that.
omega-6 certified, something along those lines. And the other thing is, have you ever thought of coming out with a tall grass cookbook?
I have one. It's called the Prairie Table Cookbook.
Prairie Table Cookbook.
And it's the story of grass-fed beef and tallgrass.
Fantastic.
We have 100 recipes in there. Most of them from our tallgrass celebrity chefs here in Chicago.
Right.
I'll have to get that to you.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
It's not as good as the obstacle course.
yeah.
A shameless plug, but thank you.
Of course, I don't have mine.
Did you get a chance to read it?
I've gotten into it, and I really like it. I like the visual presentations and, the similarities between obstacles that we all face.
Every day.
Raising capital, it's a great how-to book.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it. The other idea I had was this. What if we had a real short, concise restaurant operator's manual on how to sell and promote the tallgrass beef product?
Yep.
And so it's essentially the cookbook for the cook.
Yep.
And explaining to him how to put it on his menu, tell that story, encourage people that it is a health food, and essentially brand that, and then give him a series of marketing and advertising, couponing ideas to get people to come in and try the product.
It's brilliant.
Because let me tell you, and having financed more restaurants than I care to admit, the biggest problem is people can have great dishes and great suppliers, but they never know how to sell it.
Right.
Yes.
And so maybe you had the Tallgrass Restaurateur's operating manual and marketing manual, and it doesn't have to be long, but very to the point on how to present the product at the table, how to present it on the menu, how to use it as a promotional item at their restaurant to bring people in. And, then maybe set them up on, a 10-box order that comes in over time. And with each box, you give them another promotional incentive, so on and so forth. Yeah, another nugget hits them, so on and so forth. Because, there's always and I've seen this happen time and time again, there's always a danger when you do business with a Walmart or a Kroger, they'll tell you, send me 70 pallets, send me 6 tons, send me, and number one, you've got to finance those large orders,
right? Because
they have a tendency, in the food business, it's a little bit better. They'll get you can get down to 10 days, but they'll try and work you at that 30-day level. And of course, then you need timing difference financing, which, certainly we can help you with. But I just like the idea that the whole introduction experience that I had at Harry Carey's, one, the build-up that was given to me by John Caveney was unbelievable. My mouth was watering when I walked in the door. So and my expectations were certainly surpassed. But the waitress even had a couple comments. And she said, she said, Mr. Kurtis was by, and I heard, and he picked these out. So you guys already know about tall grass? Mm-hmm. She knew it. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I don't know the whole story. And she said, well, this is really delicious grass-fed beef. Boom. I didn't have to say any more because I happen to know about the benefits of grass, as opposed to the traditional growing method. And I, as I told you, I have a ranch up in Colorado, a cow-calf program, and then I have a feedlot, but I don't finish. But I do keep, as I told you, there's a certain number of head of cattle that we just keep on grass, and I'm just telling you, it's just a better product. It's just a better product.
We hear about this more and more and more.
We will.
And George, this marketing idea you have I think it's really, really brilliant to help the end provider of the product and educate them in the process of educating the end user.
Right.
I wanted to ask you, and for the benefit for Bill's project or any project where you have this threshold you find yourself at as a producer of whatever food product, how do you approach the problem of forming capital for this growth that we're now talking about, this kind of expansion that Bill is imagining?
I'll tell you a short story, Bill. One of my mentors on Wall Street, he's now deceased, Raphael Bloom, he was the master at forming capital for small cap and large cap companies. And he never called me by my name. It was Kid. Hey, Kid. Yeah, hey, Kid. And he said, when you've got a retail product, it's always about the face of the company. And certainly this is a perfect match. And he took me one time to a due diligence of dog and pony show. And this was a competitive product to Monroe Shocks. And it was a little company called Stein, which now is dominating the world in shock absorbers. But the person behind that was Andy Granatelli. Remember that name?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And he was a very P.T. Barnum-ish kind of guy, a little short rock, built like, the hurricane could move through town and he'd still be standing, And he walked around that room, and of course it was Andy Granatelli, and he's saying why this product is so great. I walked out of that room, seriously, thinking that I didn't want to buy the stock, I wanted to buy the product. And same thing here. In capital formation, this certainly is a product with a well-known celebrity face behind it. Yeah. Obviously, the star power can build on that. But in this case, I would recommend that any future capital actually be sort of constructed in a matrix, in that more equity be raised with maybe a revenue participating certificate, because as the company grows, the product, the distribution of the product increases, then everybody can participate in that growth. Sure. And then use a little more traditional credit to maybe, bring that credit facility with tall grass and encouraging that grower to grow your product. So you provide some input financing and a contract and a takeout, and then you're able to essentially lock your market. Land O'Lakes is the proof in the pudding of that model, and what they do is they provide the financing to everybody that provides product to them.
That's fascinating.
And so it's something we could do so that you sort of close your market with your grower, and you assure the quality of the product coming through the pipeline. And then, of course, if there's ever timing difference financing needed, obviously that can be punched in as part of the formula. But any additional equity, I think this is the point in time where it gets really sexy for an investor. The people that have taken the highest element of risk up to this point, the 20 or so that are already in, have seen the success. They've actually felt it. So now when the company sort of sets itself up to step up to the next plateau, those investors aren't going to be rewarded as well as the first 20, but certainly well enough to encourage them from the perspective of creating an attractive instrument. But that's something you may want to think about long term, is how to lock that market out there, sort of that Land O'Lakes model.
That's huge.
I love it.
Yeah, that can work, and we can certainly help you with that. Love to help you.
Thank you.
Let me ask you one question here. You know, I know you're back on television. You're anchoring there. You're having tremendous impact on the ratings. But where would you rather be? Would you rather be out on the ranch growing cattle and marketing this product? Has it really grabbed a hold of you?
It has. I spend all day. I go in late and spend all day on tall grass.
Fantastic.
And, you know, we're just come in and you hit it every day, but I'd rather be out there, as you would.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the wide open spaces. That's it.
40% of my book of business in BH Capital is related to agriculture. They're my favorite people to work with, and I too, you know, I've thought of ways where I could possibly locate a satellite office up there.
So you're forming capital, you're forming cattle.
I'm growing. You know, I'm stimulating the wheels of commerce and also putting gain on my cattle. So
I love it.
That's great, though. So this is really your new passion now.
It is.
That's neat.
You know, my production company, we do American Greed for CNBC.
Right.
Gold case filed, but I have wonderful people who are better than I, and so they can run the company. That's what you want.
That's absolutely.
And this is a labor of mission, you know.
Great.
So,
cool.
I'd like to get to the point where I'm just out there building market.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Well, Bill, again, thanks so much for coming on Just Ask George, and we really appreciate the story of Tallgrass, and of course want to avail ourselves to help you in any way possible. I think it's a great product. You've done a great job, and I think that this is a testament to how strong the product is, that he's built this business in the midst of a recession, and it's successful.
It's pretty extraordinary. Not easy to do.
Yeah, not at all. So kudos to you on keeping the bricks, tied together with a very strong mortar in the way of management and the product. But I will say one thing in closing, in that it's all about if you like the product in the end, and I don't think that that's ever going to be a question with this. And
there you go.
I want to wish you all the success in the world. And again, thanks.
Bill, thanks for joining us on Just Ask George.
I'll be in touch.
Okay, my man.
Absolutely.
Be good, huh?
And folks, thanks for joining us as well to hear Bill's story, the story of this tremendous growth they're doing. Thank you for the tools in the toolbox.
Were you thinking about all those double entendres about growth? And
you saw my bubble thinking, on different channels.
I hear you.
Thanks for really, it's great stuff for our audience and for Bill Kurtis.
Fantastic.
See you next time on Just Ask George.
Bye-bye.
See you later.